l'État propose des choses, beaucoup de mesures, mais qu'elles sont pas tenues. Je pense que c'est un manque de courage, que tout le monde est concerné, que ça demande des sacrifices et que l'État a peur de prendre de vraies décisions.
Ils réfléchissent à un certain futur quand même, c'est-à-dire moins de voitures, plus de transports en commun peut-être aussi, ça c'est vrai. Maintenant dans le futur, faudra voir, hein. C'est une question qui reste posée. Quels seront les moyens qu'ils pourront avoir déjà, mettre en place, quelles sont leurs priorités, parce que la priorité c'est eux qui les décident quand même, des besoins c'est pas forcément les gens de la rue.
Et il faudrait avoir en fait, une plus grande intelligence et ne pas voir à court terme.
I share the sentiment in a way that, first of all, we have a very limited resources, but also we have a lot of needs. So that makes a decision difficult because you have to make choices among investment that we should take on. So this is very related to our research because we have a limited resources and then what kind of a public investment we should select and invest for the current generation and also for the future generation. So this is the first step. And also second point is that once we select out those projects, how we can actually implement them. I think at this stage, we need to have a very strong and transparent institutions so that we can really carry on this project and make them realistic. And lastly, I think the last lady, she was kind of right in the sense that we are doing something for future generations. And I think the question to ask is that, are we doing enough? This is quite an open question, and I think no one could represent the future generation. But unfortunately, the future generations, they are not here, and they don't even have a vote. So it's almost up to us to make the decisions on behalf of them. So this eventually is up to debate. We should have open and transparent debate to decide to what extent we should make an effort for our future generations. So in this paper, we are particularly interested in how we should select out public investment project. And in particular, we focus on the risk aspect because we know that we have a very limited resources for implementing all public investment projects. So we have to make a selection. But this project, they often have very different risk profiles. If the project generates some consequences which are risky, how we should deal with these risks. So sometimes project can generate more risk, so they generate positively correlated with the macroeconomic risk. But some project, they may reduce the social risk. So if you think about healthcare or education, sometimes they work well when the economic is in a recession. So the idea is that maybe we should treat this project differently because they carry on different types of risks. So how we should do that, this comes to what kind of a social discount rate should we use. So based on the modern finance theory, we should punish those projects that bring more risk to the whole society, but prioritize our resources to those projects that reduce our societal risk. We know that for those types of public investment projects, often they last quite a long time. So sometimes for decades and for more than 100 years. So we need to bring the future values into the current values. So this is where we need to have this discounting rate, so the social discount rate. So it's about the trade-off. So trade-off between today and tomorrow. So if you invest €1 today, how much you would ask for the future? So if you use a very large discount rate, the value of future value will become very small, and they will not be invested. But if you choose a very small discount rate, project will be implemented. So eventually, this is going to determine which kind of investment we should make for our future. So that's why it's so important. But also because risk projects are so different in terms of their risk profiles, we should actually adjust our discount rate so that we can choose really good projects that maximize our social well-being and maximize our common good. So from this study that we carried out, we find that actually most of the economists that we surveyed, they agree on adjusting social discount rate based on the risk of public investment project. So I think this is a very strong message for policymakers. So we have some consensus about what we should do. And the current discounting system is flawed, and this should be corrected. Actually, the very recent study carried by my co-author, Christian Golli, and he estimated that if we use one single discount rate, they could generate quite a dramatic impact on our economic growth. It could be up to 10% of GDP loss if we use one single discount rate for all types of projects. It could generate huge efficiency in our economy. So we hope that this study could send this message to policymakers and move us away from the current status quo.